Today is actually a very, very, very special day for me. I have the honor of sitting with two of the most influential leaders in the country. It's a matter of pride for us that our IPN members are making such a positive impact and are changing the face of their respective industries, be it the food service industry or the fresh, natural, and organic food market. Both of these leaders represent the supreme end of the spectrum when it comes to their impact, their influence, and most importantly, their vision. Let me introduce our special guest to you this morning. Our first guest is a very familiar face and an even more familiar name for all of us, named as one of the 10 most powerful leaders in the food service industry. He has made success follow him everywhere he goes. Let me please welcome the founder and chairman of NRD Capital, Mr. Aziz Hashim. Our second guest is a young and dynamic leader who has traveled all the way from Arizona just for us. Often quoted and interviewed in several national media outlets like CNBC, he currently leads one of the fastest growing organic food chains in the United States. Let me please welcome the CEO of Sprouts, Mr. Amin Meradia. Now, if all of you have followed IPN TV on YouTube, you probably know that we have both of their interviews on there, so please make sure that you can bookmark and view those interviews. A funny story is that I was traveling to Scottsdale, Arizona when Amin was here, when IPN TV was interviewing, and I missed that opportunity. But I guess you say when you have a desire in your heart, the universe actually conspires to make that happen, so look where we are sitting over here. So I'm glad for that. We're going to be asking you a few set of questions, and I'll start with you, Aziz. In the early years of your career, with a background in a prestigious field like electrical engineering, you could have easily opted for designing, electrical products instead of prepping for lunch hour in your restaurants. If anyone owns a restaurant, you know what that is. In the past, you've also spoken about how early exposure to restaurants throughout your high school career and college years made you feel that you had a higher probability of success in a field that you were already advanced in. Please shed some more light on such major career decisions.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. First of all, I don't know why you didn't refer to me as young as well, but we'll take that. We'll take that up later.
Note to self.
But it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me. It's just an honor to be able to speak in front of all of you today. That question you asked me is a question I get a lot, because it's a question that is on the mind of many young professionals, and people are always trying to distinguish, should I continue down this professional path or take on some kind of opportunity in entrepreneurship, et cetera? And what I like to say is there's this notion of purpose and occupation, passion and occupation. Passion is what moves you, what motivates you, what makes you want to get up in the morning and do something with your life. And occupation is what we do to earn a living, right? And sort of a nirvana for a person is, can you marry your occupation and your passion? In other words, can you be doing something which you love doing? Studies show that more than 70% of Americans are disengaged at work. Think about that number. That's a staggering number. That means 7 out of 10 people get up in the morning and go to work and are clearly not 100% happy with how they're spending the most productive time of their lives. 8 or 10 hours of the day, every single day, and you're doing something you're not quite happy with. So a kind of nirvana is to find that intersection between passion and occupation, right? It's not easy. And the younger you are, when you find that intersection, the luckier you are as a person. And the question is, well, how do you know? People ask me, well, how do you know what your passion is? I will tell you, it seems like a very easy question. It's one of the most difficult questions for any human being, to find out what your natural, innate talent is. And sometimes it's so close to you that you don't realize it. So you have to ask others, people who know you well, but also people who don't know you so well. And ask them straight up, what do you see in me? Where do you see I'm happy? When do you see that I'm so excited that I lose track of time? Okay? And listen to the answers, and you might be surprised. And remember, sometimes the answer is such that you don't want to believe it because it comes so easy to you. You go, that can't possibly be what I'm supposed to do in life. That's just too easy. Anyone can do that. Actually, no. Everyone cannot do that. It comes easily to you. And finally, I will say a litmus test for that question. Just one day, just sit down and quietly reflect. What is the one activity that you would do even if you didn't get paid for it? Right? If money was off the table and you could choose something that you would like to do, what is that? What is that occupation? And again, it's not easy. Some people find it very late in life. The person who created Price Club, for example, Costco, found it at age 65. Okay? And some people find it very, very early in life. A Mark Zuckerberg, a Bill Gates, both ends of the spectrum. The faster you find it, the happier and more productive life. So for me, I found very early on, by accident, by working in fast food, said, I like this. And so when I quit my job as an electrical engineer, I did not know what I was going to do, but I knew what I didn't want to do, and I didn't want to do the electrical engineering. I wanted to do this job, which I liked a lot better. So hopefully that adds a little bit of color on why I made that decision.
Very beautiful response to that. Like you said, very few are those who find it early on in their lives. And I'm glad we had you find that. And NRD Capital, of course, a very successful venture from your end. And,
thank you.
The next question is for you. In one of your interviews, you call yourself a 10th generation farmer and a first generation merchant. My question is two-part. What does that mean when you say that? And can you please share with us how your early life with your family as a first generation immigrant and entrepreneur in Texas helped you shape your professional life as it stands today?
I'll give a short answer, and we can talk about this more later. To the first part of the question around why do I say that is so that I can stay grounded on who I feel I am and my heritage is and not be shy about it. In my office, at my nightstand, and at the entry to my house, you'll find the oldest picture of the Gamla picture of the oldest picture I have of my family, so people understand the roots of who I am, and they hopefully try to understand who I want to be. And so I think that's important. We can speak more about that later. I think to the second question around the immigrant piece is, for many of us, we have variations of the story. For our family, it was coming to the U.S. primarily for education, but also business opportunities. But education was the motivator. And being first generation, you go through all the very similar bumps of most of the stories in this room. Is parents didn't know much about the education system, so you just went to school. You were left to the school system. I think I was the last one in high school to sign up for the SAT, because my teacher said, you haven't signed up for the SAT. And I'm like, what's the SAT? Wow. Right? So we're so far ahead today in our community, and I would suspect that a quarter of you in this room probably got a higher grade in one part of the SAT than my total SAT score. So maybe more than a quarter of you in the room. So, and then you run into bumps, is the natural stories of going to university. Back then it was a little bit easier. We were still waiting for a green card. I didn't have a university I can get into. No one would take me. We found a small private university in Houston who said, well, we could do conditional only if there's room. So like first week, my dad's going every other day, right? And my mom's like, he's not gonna get in. They're like, we're not sure. Every other day to say, is there a space, is there a space, is there a space? So like 4 or 5 weeks after I graduated, or university had started, I still didn't know if I was gonna go to university. So, but the reason I share these stories is, it gives you, in how I use it in my career today and work today, after a lot of time and learning, is it gives you a really good understanding and optimism around a couple of things, especially in our company where we have 30,000 employees, of which over 20,000 don't have a college degree. And so understanding that when I'm out in our stores across the country, that people are where they are because of life circumstances and many times not decisions that they've made. So the passionate part of my job, if I had to pick one, is when I see that hardworking person and you can inspire them. And I always do the same story. I can see somebody working hard, helping customers. I'll watch them, and then I'll walk up to them and I'll ask them how long have they been at Sprouts. They'll say 1 year, 1.5 years. if they're in the front line. And I always tell them, 3 years you're a department manager, 5 years I want you to be a store manager, and there's one way you're going to do that. You're working hard, but I want you to learn. I want you to learn every part of the store. And so that's fun because you understand, because I understood growing up in this country that you run into all these bumps, and I think the ability to give back and inspiring people to shoot somewhere, and of course when they're store manager, and I do hold them accountable. I tell them to email me every 6 months and tell me what they've learned and where they're headed. And most of them do that, and they're probably not as far ahead as they want them to be, and so they get feedback from me. So I think it helps me just being a little bit more grounded and understanding of really what's happening in our everyday environment.
I mean, I want to relate your answer to a session that we had right before on emotional intelligence that Don facilitated for us. And some of the points of great leaders actually was what you said about, identifying, empathizing, listening, and identifying the right people to develop. So thank you for shedding light on that. I have these common questions for both of you, and we can take turns in answering them. My first one is, help us understand the balance between being an entrepreneur and a corporate professional. Are these qualities mutually exclusive? And what would be your recommendation to those who are in their early to mid-careers? We can start with you, Aziz.
I think in the past there was a difference. Today there's not much difference. I see around me entrepreneurs that did not have college degrees or had lower level degrees going back to earn MBAs and higher degrees. At the same time, I see universities, and I happen to be very fortunate to be on the board of the business school here at GSU. I see universities struggling very hard and striving to bring entrepreneurship into their programs so that when their kids graduate, they actually know how to solve real world problems and how to think like entrepreneurs. So anymore, I think those two are not mutually exclusive at all. I think you have to have, as an entrepreneur, very, very solid corporate skills and educational skills. And I think as an entrepreneur, if you don't have those, you're going to get left behind just because technology is going to, right? And it's in terms of people who have straight corporate careers, if you don't think like an owner, right? I tell this to young people all the time. I don't care what your position is at your firm. At any given time, if the CEO of the firm were to stop you, like Amin stops people at his stores in the hallway and ask you a question about the direction of the company, you should have an answer. You should have an answer, right? It doesn't even matter what the answer is, just the fact that you've thought about it enough. Obviously, you don't have all the facts at the lower levels, but that's entrepreneurial thinking. That is thinking about the bigger picture. That's thinking broadly, connecting some dots, trying to understand where your firm makes revenue. How does it make profit? What are the headwinds? Who are the competition? Where are the opportunities? What's going on? So I think corporate professionals and career corporate professionals have to start thinking like entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs are definitely thinking like corporate, so that they can get the best of both, both of those situations. In fact, big companies, like I'll give you a common example, Lockheed Martin is a classic example. They're so interested in their employees thinking entrepreneurially, they actually create like startup divisions within the company, just so that people would start thinking more entrepreneurially and don't get caught up in corporate red tape. So they started this thing called the Skunk Works, and Amazon does it, and Google does it. All of these guys have little pods within their company where they force everyone to start thinking like entrepreneurs. So I think this is a very, very important aspect that you should know. So it doesn't matter which side you're on. Corporate career, great. Entrepreneurship, great. Just make sure you understand the other side.
I mean, your take on it?
I couldn't agree with Aziz more. Depending on the business, not always, in a corporate role, especially as you move up to the leadership level, you're just an entrepreneur who may have more commas and zeros in the revenue of the company and more people, right? So it's no different. If you look at some of the best leaders that I've had an opportunity to meet across corporate America as well as private businesses, and that's one thing that's happening in the US today is there's very, very, very large private businesses, and I think we're seeing a resurgence over the last 5 or 10, 20 years, but I think it'll continue that. A lot of private businesses will remain private. And so, so it's really blending, the two are blending. And when you sort of look, especially as you move up in the career, you're unlikely to move into a more and more senior role unless you're an entrepreneur, unless you have business instinct, unless you understand the business, the landscape, the marketplace, all of those things. And the perfect example of the entrepreneur I'll use is June 16, 2017, 6:02 a.m., I got about 300 voicemails and 2,000 emails within an hour. And that was an hour within when Amazon bought Whole Foods. And the entire company, the board, the company, employees, Wall Street, everyone's looking at me and going, you guys are screwed, right? And I sent an email back to various constituencies, called our PR person. I said, here's the messages I want to note out in 15 minutes to the company, immediately. I sent a note to the board saying, I need 48 hours to think about this. I'll get back to you if you can just give some room here, right? So that's where you've got to turn into an entrepreneur and go, what does this even mean? And fully take everything you've learned around the things that Aziz talked about, knowing your industry, knowing what's going on, knowing how the pieces have been moving and could move, where the puck could go, and there are many places where it could go. And in 48 hours, I was responsible for getting back to a whole bunch of people to set the direction, and that was not going to happen if I didn't have an entrepreneurial mindset in the back of my head.
Very interesting. And we are blessed in the Smiley community to have exposure to both the business side and the professional side. And we have support groups such as this and alliances that help us, move forward in any of the fields that we choose to go, whether it's the medical field, owning restaurants and retail industry, or having a corporate career. My next question, and I'll start with you, Amin. Leaders are often known for several qualities, but the one that paves the way to their success or even their company's success is their vision. Both of you have tremendous responsibilities on your shoulder, not just for your own companies, but the industry, your respective industries. Can you help us demystify vision? And please break it down for those who may not consider this to be as part of their radar.
Yeah, this is a complex question and a very simple question, and I'll use a couple of quick examples. I'll start with what vision is not, right? Vision is not direction of the company. Vision is not a 10-year plan. Vision is not how many stores I want to open. Vision is not what my financial revenue should be in 10 years. Vision is not when I want to retire, on and on and on. And this takes a long time to understand. I'll start with the headline I actually hate the word vision. It's really this. If you look at the companies that have been around for a long time, and that's very few, and there are very few who have a true sense of vision. When I joined Sprouts, the company didn't have a vision statement, and we were just so busy for 2 years. And then 2013, I started doing actually a lot of research around this question, and I went back to HBS and talked to Dr. Michael Carter and John and various professors there, Michael Porter, who's probably one of the renowned strategists, certainly in terms of research. And what I learned from that is vision is really just what's your sense of being and what's your purpose of being? What are you really trying to do? And a vision is not a great vision in my mind if a company can get there. If you can get there, it's not really a vision. In most cases, I can think of a couple examples where you could say, yes, you've arrived. And so if you look at some of the interesting visions, there's many, many, many bad ones. And I was actually Googling them last night. I was trying to find 2 examples here, and it took me going through about 800 vision statements to find 2 good ones. Wow. What I thought were top-notch, because everything had an end and it was narrow. Disney, to make people happy. And so when they make people happy, that was what I call a good one. Now they're trying to make people happier. So you can really never make people happy. right? Walmart's actually a simple one, but a good one. I'm going to cheat here, look down, is saving people money so they can live better. That can actually never be achieved, because what does live better actually mean, right? And how much to make more money, somebody said. So that's really vision allows you then to set direction for the company or your business, allows you to make decisions. And I'll sneak this in quickly. The Sprouts example, it's a longer one. We tried to tighten it, but here's ours, right? We're a health food business, so our vision's every meal's a choice, and we're here to inspire, educate, and empower people to eat better and live longer. That's unlikely ever to happen to 100% of America, right? Every person, right? We didn't say by selling it at cheaper prices and on and on and on. There's a lot of places we could have gone. So we ended up there, and it's something that we're aspired to, and we can actually never get there. So it took us a long time to come up with that, and it was long, and it was there for a reason, because we wanted to get people and health in there, and we had to be cheap enough to be every person. I was going to make one more comment around vision, but I'm losing it now. So if I come back, if I think of it later, I'll come back to it.
Sure. As is your take on vision?
Yeah, I think Amin was very eloquent in his explanation. I would also ask you to think about it another way. If you fly and you're a pilot, there's this concept of the horizon line. That is a line in the distance which you need to make sure that you're level with, that you're pointing to, but you're never going to get there. So vision is very, very directional. Vision is not only a business concept. I would suggest to everyone in this room, if your family doesn't have a vision statement from your family, you should get one. Your family should sit down and think about what's the vision for your family across multiple generations. Multiple generations. Because visions are what gives you direction. It's what allows you to make sure that you're pointing in the right way. Companies need vision, families need vision, individuals need vision. Vision is hard, vision statements are hard because they force you, as Amin said. If it's so easy to mix up a mission statement and a vision statement, right? It's so easy to mix that up. Mission statements are targets, man. They're easy. You're going to get there. Vision statements are very hard to put together because it's actually aspirational. It's something that just gives you a directional, guidepost. It's a beacon that we're going to head towards that. So it's the foundation of all leadership. Every leadership book you'll ever read or every leader you'll ever talk to will talk about vision. It's actually what leaders get paid for, is to establish a vision and then inspire those underneath them who they're leading to move towards that vision statement. That is really the goal of a leader. So if you fancy yourself, you want to grow in an institution, in a company, or a nonprofit institution, a Jamaati institution, as a family, have a vision. Have a vision statement. And it must be in writing, folks. This can't be something you think about. You have to put it in writing. You have to look at it every day. And you have to believe and follow that vision statement. So I think this is fundamental. It's foundational. And all of us would be well advised to have multiple vision statements depending on the range of activities that we do.
So I just remembered, I'll add, is because I said I hated the verb vision, we actually don't call our mission or vision statement at Sprouts. We call it our passion statement.
Wow.
This is why we exist. And the other thing I was going to say is after my feet stopped shaking 10 minutes after that announcement, I took a copy of our passion statement and just went for a 2-hour walk. I just went to the park from our office and just nearby and just sat there on a table and just stared at it and started thinking about the industry and the dynamics, et cetera, and a whole bunch of things became very clear. And then I came back and started shooting off all my emails and going, here's the plan.
Yeah, and very eye-opening. 2 things I want to comment is, we always thought, or some of us would have thought, vision statements are those that you can achieve, the smart way of, putting, but that's for goals and missions, like you said, not for vision. And secondly, when you look at a CEO's job, we see the commas in their income, but we don't see the stresses that they go through day in and day out. And I think that's an eye-opener for all of us, that situations both of you are put into, there are changes in the industry that you have to constantly react to, spur of the moment. And that leads me into my next question. We live in such a fast-paced environment. It changes rapidly, and both of you have to keep a pulse on it for your industry and for your company's growth, honestly. Tell us what you think will be the next big growth market, and we can start with you, Aziz.
There are lots of things that are changing rapidly in our world. At NRD Capital, some of the things that we are keeping an eye on is technology, but that's not new news, but particular types of technology. We are very interested in artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence's impact on retail, right? In which, by the way, I will say China is way ahead of us, way, way, way ahead. We're taking a look at blockchain, right? So Bitcoin and these cryptocurrencies, they may come and they may go, but the underlying technology, blockchain, has fundamental impact on the way that commercial transactions are done, how food safety is verified, how chains of custody are controlled. So we're looking at blockchain to see how that can fit in. On a more macro level, I think that when I was young, someone gave me a lot of advice, and we're going to talk a little bit, I'm sure, later about people who advised us. But once a very wise person told me, because he observed me reading a newspaper, he said, I'm glad you're reading the front page, but you should be reading page 17. And I said, why? He said, because the future is in the back pages. What's on the front page is history.
Wow.
Okay? So what was on page 17 yesterday? And page 17, obviously, just a metaphor for just a number, back of the book, back of the paper. Yesterday, very quietly, Jeff Bezos unleashed the power of Amazon into the space race. Okay? Unleashed it. Very quiet. Everyone's talking about, Amazon 2 and where's the next headquarters going to be, and are they going to catch up to Apple and be $1 trillion market cap? But very quietly, he told his team, we're going to win the space race. I don't care what it costs. Get it done. Okay? So macro, think about what's happening in space. Think about what's happening in material sciences. Another area, which I think our Jamaat actually has done a great job in getting a little bit ahead of, is this whole gene editing and bioscience, CRISPR. Okay? These things will fundamentally change the way we live and how long we're going to live. Okay? Gene editing is tremendous technology, and it's right there. I mean, they are using it today. It's only a matter of time before it becomes common. So we've got health sciences, lots of trends. We've got space exploration, and space actually colonization out there. We've got artificial intelligence and blockchain, and those things that are more closer to the ground here. So it's wise for us as forward thinkers, all of us. Again, I don't care if you're a high school student or big CEOs like us, everyone has to keep a track of what's going on and read the back pages. Don't let these small news get away from you because you're concentrating on all the noise on the front page, what's going on in politics. And yeah, you got to keep up with what's happening, but that's not the power. The power is what's happening on page 17 of the newspaper, what's coming up. Okay, those are important points.
Sure. Your take on the next growth
So
market.
we haven't spoken on this topic ever, and we speak quite a bit on and off. So ditto. The only thing I would add is there's early, again, learning to understand, and then whether or not it applies to your business or your career or your company. I think it's super important to know is there's early, not only research, but conversation going on around, are we willing as a society to take the word artificial out of that intelligence, right? So artificial is, that's already, we're at a very, I would call it a reactive, the technology exists to be a lot more dynamic, and I think over the next 5-10 years, artificial intelligence is going to be a lot more dynamic, and particularly uses, I think it's going to be across the board, but the practical uses for everybody in this room, the biggest impacts are going to be things like healthcare, things around the home, things around driving, things around when you start getting into healthcare, and with biometrics, it's going to be able to pinpoint how many years from now, based on your gene, your DNA, et cetera, are you likely going to have a heart attack at 6.5 years from now. Some of that research is already being done and being mapped out today. So that's all going to become very normal life off of whatever digital device that's sitting on your hand. Probably in the next 5 to 10 years, that commercialization is going to hit by 10 years for sure. So, and the conversation now, I think, is not getting into is society willing to take that next step to remove the word artificial? And I think the best example in the short paper I've seen on this is artificial intelligence is kind of looking at just the top roots of a tree. And if you remove the artificial, you need to be able to get all the way down to every single root and understand all of it to the basic. And so the self-learning is just happening. So humans don't need to apply the artificial elements to learning. And it's just learning. Now you're just monitoring as humans. So.
All right, thank you for those insights. Our next question is, do you believe in the power of networking? And what are your suggested ways to master? I mean, we could start with you on this.
Ooh, I almost would let Aziz go first on this one. Why don't you go first on this one?
Okay. Networking is in an increasingly, this is very interesting. The more connected the world is, the more we need to network. Okay? Networking is absolutely crucial. But here's the problem with networking that people sometimes fail to understand. Networking is not collecting a bunch of business cards or sending LinkedIn requests to 10 million people. That is not networking, okay? That is just accumulation of contacts, okay? True networking is a bilateral process. It's a thoughtful process, a planful process. Who do you want to network with and why should be a question that you can answer. Okay? Because networking done well involves a sacrifice of time. Done well. And networking done well is not transactional. We live in a transactional society. I'll network with you because I need something from you now. After you give it to me, you're not going to hear from me in 10 years. That's not networking. That's transaction. That's actually abuse of someone's goodwill. Okay? Real networking is give and take. Not only do you help other people first, right? But you keep up with them. Right? Keep up with them. You keep them updated on your progress. You take interest in their progress. Okay? So people sometimes don't want to put the time into networking. They want to go to networking events and basically collect business cards or send in LinkedIn requests randomly to other contacts. Okay? That's not as effective as if you do networking properly. And there are different networks. So one of the issues is if your network is too closed, what will happen is you're not going to grow professionally or personally. Okay? So friends, close friends, sort of a little bit distant friends, a little bit further friends, you need to expand the pool. But that means you have to go to different places. Okay? Sometimes those places are not comfortable. For example, civic engagement. That's huge. Right? We live in America, we're citizens, we pay taxes, our kids go to school, but do we ever go to a city council meeting for the city where we live in? Do we attend the school board? Okay? Do we meet our congressmen? They're in the office, doors are open. We pay their salaries, they want you to come visit, right? Just imagine what would happen if you just increased your circle of networking activities, who you would meet. Who you would meet. There is no US senator or anybody of repute, almost no one, that did not start at a very lower rank. You might have met them on a school board 20 years prior, and now they're a senator, United States senator. But if you don't ever go there, then how does your network grow? Right? So you've got to expand the places you visit. You've got to be thoughtful about why you're there, who you meet, keep up with them, invest time, and most importantly, pay it forward. First, help people if you can. Right? Sometimes you're young and you can't, but try wherever possible to help people where you can. And so when you need help, they would come back and help you. But I will tell you, in a world of when we get 1 million resumes, so to speak, for every job application, we're looking to our networks mostly. People we trust, saying, you know what, there's just too many. We can't go through all these resumes, man. Do you know anybody that you feel would be best here?
Absolutely.
So don't rely on this thing. Right? This, you know what I'm talking about? This phone here is not going to get you very far. It's the personal relationships, the people who you know, who trust, They trust you, and they will connect you to folks. And I know there are lots of people in this room who know what I'm talking about when it comes to making those personal connections, so very important.
So either we're reading the same thing or we're related closer than we think. I agree with everything.
We've been in institutions for a long time, so we've learned our lessons.
So I agree with everything that Aziz mentioned, so I'll just give a couple of additional sort of tools, perhaps, for people who are thinking about networking. One layer down is I think it has to be natural, and so when you can go to classes and saying, okay, how do you network better? And I think gaining knowledge is important and it's great, but you have to be in your natural state. I always use the example of me, and many of you know probably in this room, Kareem Budwani, right? And so totally different personalities. If I try to network like Kareem Budwani, I would fail miserably, right? Because Kareem's just a different personality, and so I'm trying to use names of people that you may know. So you want to be really in your natural state. I agree with Aziz is you want to help them, and when you're networking with somebody, you don't want to network with them unless you have a genuine passion or interest in either something that they're doing or something that you have a passion about. And so always, whether it's civic engagement or other community places, getting engaged and networking in areas where you have a passion about makes the networking so much fun, so much more natural, and it's amazing how many interesting people you meet there that you would never think about. One of my personal passions is education. A lot of reasons, but education, and I've met so many interesting people at different events. One, I always tell this story for the women in the room. I was at this networking event, and I'm talking to this person for about 20 minutes, on and on and on, in Los Angeles. He said, we have 20 people coming to my house. Can you come and talk about this with them? I think it would be really interesting. I said, look, I'm busy. I can't do it tonight. I didn't know who this person was, and then I left that area, and I went to see a friend who was also there. And she goes, brushing up to the big celebs. And I said, I'm sorry. She goes, you were sitting here talking to Mark Wahlberg for like half an hour, right? So he's still on me right now saying, can you come, but the point is it wasn't, if the topic was interesting, then maybe I'll take passion around it. Another one actually I'm meeting with him next week, is Dustin Back at Riot Games, right? So they just sold to Tencent. But initially when I first heard about it, I'm like, I have nothing in common. What am I gonna do this meeting for? Now it's more interesting because he's grown a fund. I think he started a $1 billion fund in food and farming and farm to table and really sustainability. And now I've got something interesting that we can spend like, I don't know, probably 3 days on. We're meeting for a couple of hours. But the point was, if I was gonna go network with him to talk about Riot Games and gaming, I have no idea. Of course, my son's coming to my meeting. He's at UCLA. He's like, you're not going to the Riot Games facility without me, right? So I think that's so important, that network in areas that you really have passion and things that you're passionate about. And you will find some amazing people in those areas, totally like random people who have passions for those areas. They don't do that for a living. They just are there because they have such a passion, and that's fun.
And networking sometimes gets a little jittery for people to be able to approach someone and go and introduce themselves and ask for their passion, share their life stories and whatnot. And I think, as IPN has provided an opportunity, this is the first step of us getting to know people who we may not have known, we may not have seen, but we have the opportunity to sit with them today, to network tonight at the Diamond Ball. Tomorrow we have an event. And these opportunities are what the community is providing to take the first step and to get to know people who have a passion or something in common with you that you can essentially, kind of take it forward as a relationship.
Let me add just one thing. Networking sometimes for many people does not come naturally. It's hard. And sometimes people tell me they don't like to network because it's hard. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's an immigrant thing. Maybe it's something that we don't get out enough, or maybe a lot of us are introvert because we have come from other countries. But networking is like any other skill. It just gets better with practice. You just got to do it. Okay? You have to do it. It's uncomfortable at first. I'm an introvert, believe it or not. I'm an introvert off the scale. Like, they don't make a number, okay?
I'm right next to you.
Huh?
I'm right with you.
And you know, and some of the greatest entertainers and actors and people you would think, come on, are introverts, right? And that means that networking is not something that comes easily or is natural for us, but we've learned to do it. Okay, we've learned to do it. It's like swimming. It's like anything else. You gotta flex that muscle. Networking is something that, and for others, like he was mentioning, Karim Budwani, like, you know, he's an extrovert. They probably don't make a number on that scale, you know, you know, and that's good too. But for a lot of us, I think networking doesn't come easily, and we don't like being in sessions like this when people are telling us, oh, just go network, like it's so easy. I know it's hard. Okay, I know it's hard. It takes a lot of practice. But again, as Shaina said, our community. How about starting in safe zones where you know people, right? In the sense that they're from another Jamaat Khan or another family, but at least it's not a stranger. Start to practice how to approach people and talk, and you will learn that it's not as hard once you get into it, and then keep doing more and more and more. And lo and behold, there will come a time when it seems natural to you. That's what it was for me. It was very difficult in the beginning. I was very reserved, very quiet, wouldn't know what to say. Would just freeze up. After hello, I wouldn't know what to say, right? And so this is just something that, please don't feel bad if it doesn't come to you naturally. It doesn't come naturally for a lot of people. Okay?
And I was the exact same way, and I think that's why kind of networking in your field or something you're passionate about is so much easier because you're less timid. I was exactly the same way. You start working in a room and you're like, oh, I have nothing to say. You go to the next group and you go, I have nothing to say. You go to the next group and half an hour later you walk out and you haven't met a single person and it was a networking event. Well, I've done that. I did that plenty of times already in my career.
So I think it's time for us to move to two last segments. I have a set of rapid fire questions. We're going to probably spend a couple minutes on that, and then we will open up for questions to the audience. But let me first start. We can, you know, Aziz first, I mean next, so quickly moving forward. Have you ever Googled yourself?
Yes.
What about you?
No.
We all have. Are you an avid user of any social media platforms? Please name them.
Not a big social media person. LinkedIn, I think, is an essential in our world. So I have a LinkedIn profile. But again, there's someone who manages my LinkedIn profile for me. So.
What about you, Amin?
Facebook and Twitter for sheer enjoyment and madness of what people shouldn't be doing most of the time.
Your go-to source for world and industry-specific news?
So you have to read a lot. I read a lot. So Wall Street Journal, Economist, you know the basics. Axios, if you haven't read that yet, AXIOS is a very, very good source of information every single day. That's the first thing I read in the morning. And then industry specific, because we're in so many industries, I have to read the periodicals for restaurants, for franchising, for technology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all told, probably spend an hour and a half a day to 2 hours reading at the minimum, and that's pretty much 7 days a week.
Yep, I read from 4:30 to 6:30 in the morning before I have my chai at 6:30. And weekly Economist, domestic, Financial Times to get an overseas perspective. This one I picked up from Colin Powell, Al Jazeera, to get a different vantage point. And then once in a while I'll pick up different Asian or Latin American newspapers just online just to see what's going on in other parts of the
Very interesting for international
Yeah,
news.
I think the vantage points is, you can see this, you can be looking at the exact same topic and read a US, a European, and something like Al Jazeera in the Middle East and get a totally different vantage point. And so you can really allow yourself to be well-rounded and make your own decisions and opinions.
Right. My family and I, we were telling the children that all readers are not leaders, but all leaders are readers. So thank you for sharing that. The biggest sacrifice you've made for your career is?
I think time is number one. If you don't work hard and give time, it's really hard to get ahead. And time is the one commodity that we have a very limited amount of. So I would say that throughout my life, I've spent an extraordinary amount of time to establish myself, and it's been a true sacrifice. Yeah.
Time with family.
Got it. Name a world leader, living or dead, that inspires you the most.
I think for me, Lee Kuan Yew, the father of Singapore, late Lee Kuan Yew, took a, basically a strip of land, a postage stamp size of land in the world, and made it one of the most significant countries in the world, and I'm very inspired by his life and work.
Warren Buffett.
Awesome. Name the book you're currently reading or have recently finished reading.
Already Here by Dr. Leo Galland, a very interesting book about the life hereafter from a different perspective.
I don't have the patience to read long books, so I would say I read a lot of blogs and short articles, and I love reading short research papers. So the latest one was How to Inspire People, HBR, came out a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, great. Have you ever made a cultural blunder with an international business partner or a colleague?
Not one I'm willing to talk about on stage here.
Refusing, unintentionally, of course, but not eating local cuisine, which was, sort of super important to them, but something I felt that was gross.
Do you want to name that?
Cockroach.
It's the new protein, man.
I know. That's true. We have it at Sprouts.
So,
It's not pure cockroach, but it's a high protein that has some of it in there.
anybody, debating about eating crickets and stuff, the protein, right?
Yeah.
One last question, two last questions actually. Any superstitious beliefs that you have that have always worked for you?
Superstitious? No, not big on superstition.
Okay.
I don't know if it's superstitious, but I never make a decision, a particular personal decision, without talking to my dad first. Without talking to my dad first.
Oh, interesting. Very, very nice. And the last question is, any last words of advice for our audience here?
I'd say that find your passion, find your purpose, be very thoughtful about your life, and don't chase money. You will never catch it. You will never catch it. Chase your passion, and money will catch you. It will come after you. So keep that in mind.
Two things. One of the senior-most leaders at the IIS, Institute of Ismaili Studies, when I asked him what does it mean to be an Ismaili, he said, be good, do good. I expected a thesis, and he said, that's what it means to be an Ismaili. I said, this is a pretty big building for be good, do good, as an answer.
The simple facts of life.
And the second I would give is brain in the future, heart with others, and both feet on the ground.
Great. Thank you. Let me open it up for questions now. Right here.
I have a question for both of you. Oh, I'm sorry. And the question is, the youth today don't believe in the faith. We are an Ismaili Professionals Network. Can you share with us the influence your faith has had on your business success, on your business plans, future plans?
I mean, it has a huge impact, right? I mean, and on so many levels. First is just the teachings of our faith, the ethics of the faith, on how you should do business, how you should live your life, etc. But then the opportunities that our faith affords us, right? Both of us have been in senior leadership positions, but even if you forget that, kids in our community at the age of 5, 6, 7 years old are standing in front of a podium on a Friday, reciting a Farman in front of 1,000 people. You understand that type of opportunity to speak in public, so to speak, etc., is just incredible. The religious education that we get, the secular programs that we run, the trainings. I mean, it's difficult to put in words. For me, it's pretty much everything. I don't know someone like us who come from a background that we came with nothing to achieve this level can be done without a huge impact from the community and the faith. So I attribute all of it to the faith.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I think serving in the community, civic engagement's good, but I think also serving, I've served in various different capacities in the community, not in the Jamaat, I'm talking about external community and boards and things like that. And serving in the institutions and within the Jamaati institutions, especially for young and mid-career professionals, if you get a chance to go overseas, I don't think that there was anything more significant in my life over the last 10 to 15 years that probably positioned me to be kind of where I am and who I am and where I am if it wasn't for having the blessed opportunities to do some small projects in Tajikistan and Congo and Mozambique and Kenya and doing those, and I was going at times once a year, and you'd start flying high and then you'd get grounded. You start flying high again and you just get grounded. So I think that it's very much faith driven in why you do that. And what you really start learning over time is it's never about you, and you don't really matter, right? And your family matters, but other people matter even more. So, and you also get this vantage point of the human element that you can't get in the corporate environment, or sometimes even serving in professional boards. So community work, Jamati or non-Jamati, I think sometimes you can get different dimensions, but seeing the dimensions across the globe through Jamati institutions otherwise is mind-boggling, the impact that it's had on me over the years.
Okay. I think I saw a hand go up on this side.
Good morning, my name is Aman Mita. I have a question about vision. I know you talked about it earlier. So mine for a long time has been, how many people are better off because I lived? Now, right now I'm building my personal brand, and I know it comes with work ethic, your values, what you put in every day, and how the relationships you build, but what are some ways that you've built your personal brand, some examples for both of you, and kind of some ways that you, at my age, I'm young, so how can I start to build that now so that when I'm a little older, then I have that brand established and my vision can reach more people?
I can take a crack at it. We can talk more later because I would ask you 8 questions before I would answer that question. And they're very specific questions I've probably asked about 700 to 800 young people. Anyone who wants 6 to 8 a.m. PST time, Sunday mornings. So that's when I'm on the elliptical, so I may be breathing a little hard, but we can have a chat. I think that building the personal brand it's a really hard one to answer, but what I would tell you is that natural state versus unnatural state. So if you're doing something that's natural to something that, again, getting back to what you enjoy doing, where you like serving, where you like socializing, meeting people, just think about how natural is it to me, or is it unnatural and I'm doing it just to ... my brand, personal brand. And if it's unnatural, don't do it, because if there's an iota of smartness on the other person who's watching you do this, they'll see right through it. So that's where I would just guide there is how natural is it versus unnatural.
I never thought of myself as building a personal brand. I think others build your brand for you. You're defined by your actions. What did you do? Because when we talk about brand building and positioning oneself as a particular type of person, et cetera, that's not nearly as powerful as just going out and doing stuff that helps other people and letting them define what you are and who you did. Always concentrate. So I think I'm encouraged by the fact that you are decided to help other people. I think that's essential. We have an ethic in our faith, as we all know. It's not what you have achieved, but what have you helped others to achieve. I think that's a great mantra to live by. And if you continue to focus on helping other people, then your brand will build automatically. I 100% agree with Amin that it has to be natural. If you try to get into some unnatural state for the purpose of distinguishing yourself or setting yourself apart, that's hard to do and it's unauthentic. And today people are looking for authenticity above everything else. So again, dig deep within yourself, contemplate, reflect. This is a message I would give to all of us. In this particularly busy world we live in, we don't spend enough time in reflection and contemplation, in taking time at a time when our Imam actually is building gardens all over the world and advising us that it is good to go outside to nature, sit down and reflect, contemplate, sit quietly, think about things. So we should be thinking about who we are, what we're doing, what we aspire to do, how we can help others achieve things, and live a life where you live in constant gratitude. Very important to live in constant gratitude. It's really easy when we're growing and we want to achieve something for ourselves to look up to see who we want to catch. And we really should spend time looking down to see how much more we have than so many other people. True. And that instantly brings you into a form of gratitude and humility. You become humble because man, we are so much better off than the large majority of the world. And so how can we continue to express that gratitude and help others who are not as fortunate as us to help them come along as well? So this all goes into your question. That's why so this is a very big, complex, question. And I understand, I know that the root of your question is not self-serving and self-promotional, because brand is a word that unfortunately we live within this word every day for all of our businesses and all that, and it translates into our personal lives. But don't think as much about building your personal brand as building your legacy through what you've done. What have you helped other people achieve,
Very interesting take.
For one quick comment, for those of you who travel for work or whatever other reasons, is one of the most fascinating and precious times for me is the reason I love traveling is that airplane is just me time, thinking time. And so I always tell people I board fairly early. I put the thing on, take my 20-minute nap, and when the plane takes off, then I hear it, then I wake up. But pre-jumping on the plane, I have a couple of things that I want to think about. I actually jotted down on my phone that I just, in the hustle bustle, don't get a chance to think about. I just jot down what those topics are and have a running list. And coming year, I only got through 2 on a 4-hour flight to Atlanta. But I'm really kind of stepping back, and people think I'm weird because I'm staring at the seat in front of me just thinking about something for hours at a time, right? So use that time, for those of you who travel for work, is a good quiet time.
So the organizers have pointed me. I'm going to look to my team over here and let them give us the last question.
Question for both of you, but before that, I would like to give a great compliment. As Mr. Aziz Hassim said, that the vision and the particular for each person, individual or family, or they should have the vision. You need a great applause for that. That was a very good one for the vision, what you said. And another gentleman, he speaks less, but with a great meaning and contents in that. He said one word was that I don't take any decision without asking my father. This generation, this age here, we are there, where nobody is bothered to talk to nobody for their decision. And in that situation, this successful person says that without talking to his father, taking his advice, he doesn't take any decision. That was a great value, and the family attachment you have, and you are told that. My question is that what was the turning point for both of you in your life, from where you have been here? We'd like you to share that with us.
Yeah, I'll mention one more thing, because I think this is important for some of you in the room. Some of you, this may be early. Now, and I'll give an example, not to embarrass him, but I will. I don't make any personal financial decision without asking my son, since he was 15 years of age. And so he's involved in every reasonable sized financial decision.
Because you don't want to spend his inheritance.
That's exactly right. Of which he's going to get very little, because the address is somewhere else. So I tell this story as I call my dad around NRD 1 and 2. My dad said, double your commitment than what you're thinking. And my son told me to triple the commitment.
Listen to this guy.
But I think the reason I started that is not because I actually learned just from a lot of the guidance, and we even heard it in Lisbon, is I think it's super, super important the earlier you start that. For those of you who have, if I had to do it again, I'd probably do it even slightly earlier. And I'm starting to get my daughter involved in it now. But one of the most interesting points time I had is when I was doing my will, my son and daughter were at the table negotiating about how little they were going to get. And real quick to your turning, I didn't mean to not answer your question, to your comment about turning point in my career. I don't think there's been a turning point. It's just been, the only thing I would say to young professionals is I sit down the week of Christmas every year and literally put down on a piece of paper, what did I learn this year? And what do I need to learn next year? And the other pulse check is, have I been doing the same thing for 2 years for a young career professional? Until I became CEO now, I'd never had the same role in my career for more than 18 months. So whether it's moving laterally or moving upwards, you're gaining knowledge. I would use a 24-month mark. So if you've been doing it's not about getting promoted. That's one thing. You don't control that, and I get that. And you don't want to be demanding for promotions. What you can be slightly demanding for is to learn and to learn more stuff. So when I was in public accounting, in 4 years, I moved from audit to M&A to turnaround to litigation support to all the different parts of the firm, just so I can learn, touch as many things as I could rather than just stay in one function. And I was a little bit demanding on that and to the firm and saying, I don't need to get paid more, but if I'm not learning more, we're going to have a problem, right? So you could be a little, I didn't say it in that exact same way, otherwise I would have seen the door quickly, but saying, I want to learn about one of these two topics. If something opens up, I really would like to get in there and learn. And if you take the learning approach rather than the money or promotion approach, you'll be much better off.
I mean, there are lots of turning points, but the one that stands out to me was when I was in my early 20s. I quit my job as an electrical engineer, and things were not going well because I didn't have anything else lined up. Not recommended, by the way. Don't quit your job till you got something else lined up. I happened to be a member of the EPB at the time in a different region, and the chairman of the EPB, he seemed to see that I was a little bit down in the dumps and a little bit depressed, and he said, what's going on? I said, look, I've got no money, I've got no plans, I don't know what's going to happen, I don't really know what to do, etc. And I want to do X, Y, and Z, but I've got just no way to finance it, etc. And he told me that, what you need to understand is to position your mind and your thought process as if you've already achieved it. And if you do that, you will be able to achieve whatever you can. In other words, many years from now, I reflect upon what that comment meant. What that comment made is most of the obstacles we perceive in our lives are self-imposed obstacles. There are no non-self-imposed obstacles. And once we get over the fact that the obstacles are all self-imposed, as difficult as those obstacles may seem, they melt away. So it's really important for young people, particularly as they're trying to establish themselves in life, is come up with a vision, come up with a purpose, a passion, a plan, and then don't worry about, well, I don't have financing for it. I don't know how this, forget all that. Just clarify, redefine, clarify, figure out what you want to do, and to use Shaina's point, the universe will conspire to help you achieve what you want to do. And if, for example, it's not getting there, then the problem is somewhere else. And the problem usually is you don't have enough commitment behind that plan. You think that's what you want to do, but you don't have a burning desire in your heart that that's the plan. If you have the plan, somehow, some way, it will get worked out. So good luck to all of you.
So Raheem's giving me direction that we can have one more question, and I'm going to look to this side over here.
Hi, thanks so much. Both of you talked a lot about finding your passion and having that drive your career. My question is, the other side of that argument is that a lot of millennials are chastised for having this sort of romantic notion of blending passion and career, and especially a lot of us in the room come from, we're first generation American, and we come from families that have really valued sort of financial stability and creating some sort of safety net for ourselves. How should we sort of think about reconciling those two dynamics, especially when, you know, you have sort of folks talking about how there's a tech bubble going on and people are going to work at startups? Like, how do we sort of make sure that we're making responsible decisions but still being risky enough to follow our passions?
So, you know, when you're young is the time to take risk. If you don't do it now, good luck after you've got responsibilities and family and all that. It's just really hard. So if you're young, you've got the power of time working for you, and that's the time to follow your passion. If there are people around you who are criticizing or putting down your passion, I got a simple answer for you. You're hanging out with the wrong people. Okay? True friends never dampen your passion. Never. True friends, they root for you. They're your cheerleaders. They help you achieve your passion. And a lot of times we're surrounded by people, unfortunately, who themselves don't have a passion and really, this is going to sound very negative, but really don't like anyone who has a passion. They get really upset. They get jealous. I don't know what the problem is, but a lot of times people just don't want you to have a passion because they don't have a passion. But people who have a passion and understand what it's like to find it, they want everyone to find theirs as well. It's like a light enlightenment, you know? Like, I want you to get it as well because I figured out what I want to do in life and I'm happy about it. So I would say that, you know, don't be disheartened by anyone who tries to say that your passion doesn't make sense or, you know, you're going to fail. Forget all that. And even if things don't work out, those risks are something you have to take. You don't want to wake up one day, decades from now, thinking only if I had pursued that. That's the worst feeling in the world to do that. So you've got to go for it. And, you know, usually your family is, you know, with you. And if your family's not with you, then you talk to your family and say, I need your support on this particular avenue. I know it may sound crazy. Look, I graduated as an electrical engineer, something that my family was so proud of, like a professional degree, got a great job, and I quit 90 days later. So my family, they should have disowned me, you know? But you know what they did? My mom mortgaged her house and gave me her life savings and said, you want fast food? Here you go, beta. We're banking. We're all in on you, man. Whatever you want to do, you know? So yeah, it can get tough, but persevere and don't let people distract you. Just go for whatever you think is what feels right in your heart.
The only thing I would add to what Aziz said is when you make that decision to pursue your passion is talk to people who are in, whether it's a field or not-for-profit or wherever it is talk to enough people to figure out how you're going to be really, really, really good at it. I think one of the misses sometimes is, you know, the practicality syndrome. And if you're already have started your career and you want to make a total shift, if you're going to make a total shift, you need to really ask yourself that if I'm really passionate about this, do I need more education? What type of opportunity am I going to need to look for to be really good in this industry or not-for-profit or work? How do I excel? And talk to people who are 3 years ahead of you in that area, 5 years ahead, have gotten there through networks, find people. And one of the fortunes we have in our Jamaat, I don't think there's a endeavor of human life that you can't get to somebody by talking to enough people, and one of them sitting right here in the front, will get you to the best of the best in the industry, whether it's in our community or outside our community, to some people who are highly qualified to guide you along the way. Do that, and the more unique it is, the more I think you need that help. If it's a traditional career, then if you're in consulting or public accounting or engineering or technology, there's a lot of roadmaps, practical roadmaps, but if you're doing something totally unique, you have to go out and do that.